go live type of thing, and boom, we're good to go.
Sweet.
Hi, sweetheart. Shaylee. Say hi to Shaylee.
Hi, Shaylee. How you doing, kiddo?
Hey, Shaylee.
Shaylee, I see you're a cheerleader. Are you a cheerleader now?
Yeah.
Oh, that is so cool, babe.
Yeah, it was
That's
super hot
neat.
today though for her because she was it was like 90, 110 degree heat index out there while she was cheerleading practice.
That's hot for your area.
Yeah. Okay, go take a shower because yeah, you're sweaty. And plus we're live on the air. Welcome everybody. Welcome. Let me just make sure that we're live on all streaming devices here. We're live on Periscope. We are live on YouTube and we're live on Twitch. We're live on Twitter. We're live on Facebook. You're live on everything, honey. If you're standing in my picture, you are live. Alright guys, it's been a while. It's been what, since July since we've had a show, so I thought it would be cool. Denise got me all riled up and she said, Dan, we need to have another show. It's been a while. We've taken a couple days off and we need to have a show. So, let's get a show booked. I'm like, all right. She got me all riled up and I'm like, I have the perfect guest. This is going to be awesome. We could talk Ouija. We could talk about jumping in bed with psychics on VidiSpace. We could talk about a new show that's going to be coming out. We could talk about some really, really cool stuff. And she's like, yeah, get them booked. And then she bailed. And then I said, who better to get on here than a guy that co-hosts other shows. He's been on the show before. I called him up. I'm like, Coyote, I've been on his last couple of shows, for his shows on VidiSpace, and I'm like, you want to co-host a show with me tonight? He's like, I'm in.
I'm in.
Here we got Coyote Chris Sutton on the show here tonight, guys, and we have Robert Murch from the Talking Boards Historical Society, and that's not it. I mean, up until about a month or so ago, that was it. But there's a lot more to this guy than the Talking Boards Historical Society. But that's what makes him very interesting. But let's introduce Coyote. Coyote, why don't you? Let everybody know quickly. You got a new show out on VidiSpace, kind of fairly new.
Right.
Let everybody kind of know about your show and what that's all about, and then we'll dive into Robert here.
Okay, yeah. And again, I'm Coyote Chris Sutton, and it's always great to be on with Dan and to be on Phenomena Encountered. And I know it's you guys out there and have a real wild chat going. I can see it down there and on my Facebook feed, so I'll be watching in there. But yeah, I just last month, my show On Sacred Ground premiered on VidiSpace, and what it's about is that we picked out places that are haunted, and we're not really quite sure why. And one of my theories is that houses that are haunted, where there's been no axe murders and all that kind of stuff going on, that they're haunted because they're on ground that has a high energy. All these spiritual things going on that's probably used by the natives as a place to do ceremony, or it's highly charged. And so what we do is we go outside and we do a drum circle and we talk to the spirits, give offerings to the spirits, and then we investigate outside. We don't go inside, we stay outside. And we've had some really good results. The first two shows, the first one was for our school in Iowa, and that went really good. We actually spoke to a tree spirit, we believe, and that was an interesting time there. Last Sunday, Edinburgh episode was on, Edinburgh, Iowa. It was an old poor farm, and there we were walking over graves of people who weren't dead when they were buried. I was with Kelly McCarville doing that, and Dan was there for that one too. And so now our next episode coming up, and I'm not sure when it is going to be at the Hinsdale House, as you know, Dan's property up there in Hinsdale, New York, and that's going to be the best one out of the bunch so far. And I'm looking forward to that one airing.
We hope it's the best one, right?
We hope. That's right. Well, I don't know. Talking to Puckwudgies or little ancient elemental spirits, hey. You can't ask for better than that.
I think no matter what you do, you always evolve, and as we were kind of experimenting with the filmings, we kind of envisioned it and kind of grew with it as we were filming these for you. And yeah. I think that it's it's awesome what you're doing, and I think it's cool to be able to see kind of like the the elemental spirits and being able to actually dive into the outside of the property instead of going to a haunted house. You're actually diving into the ground, so it's really neat to see what you're doing and actually be able to see your knowledge and all the cool stuff that you do with the properties and stuff like that. So I think I think people are taking to it really well, and I think that people are really enjoying the show. So I was happy to be involved with it, and I think it's really cool.
Well, Kelly's getting us. We're getting one lined up, and we're up in. And where are we going? Quad Cities in November.
Oh, nice, cool.
Kelly's going to line one up for us up there, and so we'll be shooting another one with you and me and Kelly and some of the Ghost Crier guys. I just grab who's ever around. Where I'm filming.
Grab a group of people and we'll film.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. I'll be at Ashmore Estates at the end of this month. We'll be filming there with Charlotte and Beth from Girls vs. Ghosts.
Sweet.
Yeah. So and some other folks. Dave Glidden's going to be in on that one too, I think. So
guys, thanks so much, guys, for all your shares. If everybody could share this post over on Facebook, everybody that's on Periscope, if you could please invite all your followers. We really appreciate that. Get as many people in that chat room as possible. We'll be answering some questions towards the end of the show. If you have any questions for our guests, feel free to ask them, and we'll try to get them in throughout the night. Any shares, likes, hearts, anything that you want to give us, we take it. We love it. Thank you so much. Which brings us to our current guest. We want to introduce the fabulous Mr. Robert Murch from the Talking Boards Historical Society. Robert, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. It's awesome to be here, and it's been cool to see you recently on the road.
Yeah, it is. It was really cool to meet you, and we actually met for the first time on the Nick Roth tour on the USS Hornet. And I had a table right next to Robert, and actually got to speak with him. And I had never used a Ouija board up to that point, and I'm proud to say that I have used a Ouija board, and my team has used a Ouija board on one of our filmings at the Hinsdale House with Tim Shaw present, and it actually worked really well. And I was actually jaw-dropping for me to see that happen and see that work, and it was pretty cool for me. But I felt more comfortable after speaking with you to do that, and which was my hope to kind of bring you on the show and actually have a talk about it, because I know there's kind of this taboo thing about the Ouija board, and everybody's kind of fearful of it, and there's people that are very stern about that. Those are evil. This is the worst thing that you could ever do to bring into a house. Or I played with this when I was a kid and something bad happened, and I'm never going to touch one ever again. So there's kind of that taboo kind of feeling about it, and you kind of can thwart that a little bit by a lot of the research that you've done. I mean, you've done obviously extensive research on this.
Yeah, I've spent way too much of my life and time working on the Ouija board, but I love it, and it's fascinating to me because it's such a hallmark and such a bedrock of the paranormal community. I mean, the talking board and the Ouija board, they come out of your early relatives, like the spiritualists. So they come out of the spiritualist movement. They were originally always meant to talk to the other side, and Ouija itself, the brand, the trademark, that was kind of what we see as the first talking board to really hit mass production and move from the spiritualist movement into everyone's living room or parlor, to become more of a game. And over time, I really, really like to look at how the Ouija board was seen and used and the stories that come out of every decade. So I really like to see how that happened, and it did shift. I mean, there were always people who thought Ouija and talking boards were evil, but what's interesting about them is there is something different than any other spirit communication tool, and that's that we give the Ouija board enormous amounts of power. Power we don't give to anything else we use. So, for instance, we use a K2 meter or an EVP recorder or a Frank's box or Spirit box or whatever you want to use to make your communication. If it starts to swear at you or says something bad, most people are like, oh, that's awesome, it's working, it's answering us, it's cool. If those things happen on a Ouija board, we say, get the Ouija board out of the house, the Ouija board is the bad thing. we look at all of those other devices as tools that we happen to be using. The telephone we've decided to use this time, and we don't blame that tool for the bad stuff. But with the Ouija board, when something goes wrong, or you get a message you don't like, or it says something bad to you, we blame the board. So suddenly the tool has power over us because we've given it to it. And I think it's a really interesting thing for me to watch over all of these years. I started really researching, writing, collaborating with people in 1992. And so I've had the opportunity to play thousands and thousands of times with people, all different walks of life, believers, non-believers, skeptics. And it's a fascinating thing that happens because just the look, and I think, Dan, you saw this, people come up to my table and there's Ouija boards on it. There's an immediate reaction, like a visceral reaction. You can just see it on their body.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of like they're getting doused with mace or something sometimes, and it's like, do they even want to get close to your table, you know? And it's kind of odd, you know.
Well, there was a time really interesting. So it was fun for me to be at Michigan Paracon recently because I was actually had a table next to or near two people that really gave me my start all those years ago in the paranormal world. So Amy Bruni was the first person to actually ever hire me to speak at a paranormal conference over a decade ago.
Wow.
And Jeff, that was thanks to Jeff Belanger. So if anyone doesn't like what I have to say or what I do, it's totally his fault. He'll take 100% responsibility for it. But what happened was when I first went on one of those events, and I believe they were the Beyond Reality events for the Ghost Hunters when they first started them. And I was allowed to come speak, but I couldn't stay. So people were so concerned that I would bring something because I'm surrounded by boards. I have over 1,000 boards in my collection, and a lot of other stuff that goes with that. People believed that I would bring something to the conference, so I could come and speak, and then I'd have to go home. And then the next year I could stay, and then the next year I could bring some boards to set up, and then the next year we were able to get people playing them. So it's been a weird arc for me to see the paranormal community be so hesitant and so push them away, and yet, you know, at Michigan Paracon, the paranormal community raised $3,500 to put in a gravestone for the woman who helped name the Ouija board and get it patented. So it's been a real kind of 180, you know, for me over the years to see.
Yeah, I thought that was amazing. Like you actually at all the events that you go to, or at least any of the larger events that you go to, you usually get take a Ouija board, have all the celebrities or the guests that are at the event sign the board and auction it off to raise funds for this gravestone, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
And how close are you to your goal so far?
So we're pretty close right now, and in fact, on September 22nd in Denver, people who are interested in coming and seeing this, we're going to unveil the gravestone and do kind of an event, kind of a celebration of her life, and explain kind of how the Ouija board got from where it started when this woman, Helen Peters, first gave it its name and helped get it patented to where we are with it today. And that's part of, you know, the Ouija board has a mystery. We don't want to demystify the mystifying oracle. Part of the reason most people want to play and what makes it fun is that it's a little scary. You know, it's the same reason we get on a roller coaster. Like, I don't want to die when I get on a roller coaster, and I'm pretty sure I'm not. But there's always that little voice in the back of your head that says, oh, I don't know if this is a great idea. And I think the same thing happens with the Ouija board. You know, it's like a rite of passage today. It's something every generation rediscovers. And, you know, whether it's at a sleepover or a high school party or a college party or just at a paranormal event, people decide, all right, let's play it. And I think the fact that that you're touching it, that you're part of the connection, is what causes a lot of people to have some fear, as opposed to, you know, setting a K2 meter down or setting an EVP recorder across the room and talking to it. It feels, because you're part of that connection, you feel it move, you hear it, you see it. It doesn't work without you. So unlike a K2 meter, only in the movies, I do get a chance, and I'm very lucky to have worked on a lot of movies and TV shows. Only in the movies does it move on its own. In real life, out of the thousands of times I've played, I have never witnessed that happen myself.
Interesting. I'm interesting to all the listeners out there, everybody that's listening on Twitch, Periscope, Twitter, YouTube, everybody out there. How many of you have actually used a Ouija board? If you haven't, would you use a Ouija board? I'm just interested to see some of the comments in the chat room. If you wouldn't, why wouldn't you? And if you have, would you do it again? I'm just interested to see some of the comments. Yes, positive, negative. What are your thoughts out there? Pretty neat. So that's pretty cool. Let's see what some of the people saying there out there, and kind of see what they have to do. So now, did you have a question, Chris? Sorry.
Oh, when you're talking about going to that very first con that Amy, brought you to speak in, I got this mental image of them bringing in, after you said they wouldn't let you stay because all the things that might be wrong with you because you play with these boards. And I got the image of Hannibal Lecter being carried around on a handcart with the straitjacket, and the mask and everything. I said, that must have been fun. So,
if Nick had his way, I'm sure that's how he would move me from event to event. But, it's really funny because we personalize these experiences we have. There's no way to take it out of it. So what I found with the Ouija board is most people haven't had the scary experience, but they do know someone who has. So it's very common for me to have someone come up and say, look, my mother's cousin's best friend's neighbors, played the Ouija board once and ended up in an insane asylum. And all these terrible things happened to them. And what's really unique is if you look at the numbers, just the sheer numbers, and I come from a finance background, so I'm always looking at numbers. And the only numbers Hasbro, who currently makes the Ouija board today, they own the trademark on it, and they've released the numbers from 1967, when Parker Brothers, the first full year it was in production with Parker Brothers, and to 2004, 13 million Ouija boards were made. So if we look at 13 million, it's a lot of Ouija boards, but that's a short time. So if we kind of extrapolate that from 1890, when Ouija first starts, to today, 2018, you're talking hundreds of millions.
Wow.
And when we think about the number of bad cases, possessions, anything scary that happens, how many can you list that are real, not again, urban legends or movies or TV shows, but I mean just actual cases? Because I think in a rational way, with hundreds of millions, if these things were obviously evil or demonic, and they were not just a tool that could be used for either or, they wouldn't be sold in toy stores. They've been continuously sold in toy stores since 1890. The original covers of these games had little kids holding teddy bears in the front of it. It was an entire family event to sit down and try to part the veil and talk to the other side. The Ouija board hasn't changed. We've changed, and we are way less comfortable with death today than we ever were in 1890, when death was kind of omnipresent. It was all around us.
Sure. I mean, you could lose your life any time back then. Now you're expected to live longer, and so it becomes more precious, and you become more fearful of losing it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we fear things that we're not exposed to all the time, right? The unknown is the scariest thing, because our mind makes up all kinds of stuff to fill in the gaps of what we don't know. And, again, all these years, people have been trying to talk to the dead since the dawn of mankind, when mankind realized someone died and didn't come back. Where did they go? What happened to my friend? What happened to my mother? What happened to my loved one? And so this has been going on forever. The difference is we now live in a world where we live so much longer, right? We have all this medical advancements, all this medicine, and we don't even want to look old. We dye our hair. We have plastic surgery. We live in a time of where youth is just the thing to be. And so if you go back to a time when death was all around you, in the 1890s, again, coming off of the Civil War, where there was massive death, everyone lost a father, everyone lost a son, a grandfather, a nephew, everyone lost someone.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're living in a time when you could have 12 kids and 6 of them would die. And when that child died, you'd take a picture of them, dress them up in their Sunday best with your family, and you'd put that on your wall. And that was acceptable. Today, that's really weird, messed up. But back then, death was so much a part of your life. In fact, kind of a neat thing. So the original funeral parlor was your parlor, right? It's your house. You had to change the ice in the casket of the person who died. So whether that be your father or brother or mother or whoever in your life, this all happened in your house, and you helped bury them. It wasn't until after the Civil War, when they started doing things like embalming, that became normal. It moved out of the house. And we became so uncomfortable with that term parlor that the funeral parlor took it. And today, what's the name of the room in your house?
Living room.
That would the living room. So we became so uncomfortable with the parlor because it became kind of thought of as a funeral parlor. We changed the name entirely to the living room.
Wow.
And that's how uncomfortable we are. You know, and I don't know if that's a conscious thing or just an unconscious thing. I really like to watch human behavior. And to me, the Ouija board is a barometer of our comfort level with death through time. I try to look at it like in every decade, you know. Because people still die, the Ouija board will always be popular because it is so basic and so easy. And so, again, you're part of it. One of the interesting, I wouldn't say it's a complaint because I find it all fascinating, but it happened when I was with Jeff Belanger. We were in Mansfield Reformatory, again, many years ago. And we were walking in this amazing place, super dark and super creepy and all this stuff going on. And all these people are looking down at their instruments. And there could be a ghost, you know, doing the Humpty Hump, just like you, Dan.
Yeah,
at the last event. They could be doing it down the hallway. And
he did it there, too?
Yeah.
He did. Oh, man.
He killed it, by the way.
He did. He does. You know, we did karaoke when we were in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I know it's not as cool as Michigan, but it was a cool place, you know. What was that place called? The Blind Pig or something like that?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
It was a classy establishment. So anyway, we're all doing karaoke. Dude gets up there and does the Humpty dance and never looks at the words.
Yep. Same thing.
It was a little bit harder in Michigan because it was a smoke-infested building, and it screws with your throat.
It doesn't matter. You sounded exactly like him, and it was scary. I had to see who was doing it because I couldn't believe that it was anyone that I know.
I throw the Humpty dance in when it gets tedious, when people are doing the ballads, and it's just like you just gotta fall asleep or whatever.
I think you do the Humpty dance no matter what. That's you. That is your song,
me.
Man.
That's one of my songs for sure.
It was great, and it was. I always call it scarioke, but yours was good. Yours didn't scare me. It like super impressed me. But that's kind of like the funny thing about this is like we go to these events. Everyone wants this experience. You know, they're paying a lot of money, right? Like people pay a lot of money to go to these events, get a hotel room, take time off from work, buy food, and they completely believe that if they use the Ouija board, they will have a paranormal experience. But they're so afraid to do it, they don't want to do it. And I always laugh, like they want to be touched. They want a message. They want something personal. All of the things they say that they want, they can get by playing the Ouija board. But they're afraid of a bunch of things we call today Ouija-stitions. All of these urban legends that have grown up around Ouija board use that did not exist when it started. But they've become so much a part of its life that there's no way to separate them. And so even when I work on films or TV shows, I'm happy to use those things to help tell the story because that's what people expect. And again, it needs to be a little bit scary or it's not that fun. I think that's part of it. So, you know, just a funny thing about these things, like you said, are at first people are afraid of the unknown until we sit down and talk about it and say, well, what's really the difference between using a Ouija board and a K2 meter? If there's danger in conjuring, does it matter what tool you use to this other entity or to your subconscious? Does it care or do you care? And because you care, is that where you've given it power? Because I promise everyone who's listening, there's nothing mystical about letters and numbers and cardboard and plastic unless we make it. And then that's where problems can happen. But for people who are listening who want to use it, just remember there's a hang up button built right onto it. There's a goodbye right at the bottom.
Yeah.
If you don't like what it's saying, goodbye. I've done it. I hang up on people all the time. No, not really. But
now, Robert,
I would.
Yeah, I would too. Now, Robert, okay, you're talking about, and it is a tool, and people had asked me about Ouija boards. Oh, are they this? I said, no, they're tools like anything else we use now. The difference I see between a Ouija board and like a K2 is you don't physically have to touch a K2. You're actually putting your energy onto the plastic fillet, and then it's on the board.
That was my biggest concern of using it, because you're supposedly allowing the spirit to use your body and your energy to move this planchette.
Yeah.
So what's really interesting is, and you can see it on the very bottom of the classic Ouija boards. So early spiritualists didn't necessarily believe that the spirits were coming through you to talk to you. They believed that you were putting your hands on the planchette and you were kind of giving it the beginning. You were part of the circuit. In order for you to talk to the dead, you had to be part of it. And the only way to be part of it was to touch it. And so that the spirits are pushing the things. They may be using energy in the room if you believe that that's how spirits are contacting you, or if you're even talking to spirits, like if it's not your subconscious. It wasn't until later that we see that really get popular, that people are like, wait. And in fact, a movie that made that super clear and classic were a good friend of mine, Kevin Tenney, who wrote and directed Witchboard. He took a lot of the things we think about Ouija boards today and put them in his 1985-1986 movie, Witchboard. And that's the whole thing, is that right in the beginning, the main character, Brandon, describes how Ouija boards work. And that's that the spirit comes through you, that it's actually a slight form of possession. And that's where you can get into trouble. But that wasn't something people believed early on. And what's funny is, again, believing that gives it power. People who don't believe in God, they never see miracles. People who don't believe in ghosts never have anything paranormal happen to them. People who don't believe anything bad can happen through the Ouija board literally never have a bad experience. But people who do believe these things, that, okay, it's different because you're touching it and the spirit is actually coming through you, and that's what gives it its power. Well, if you believe that, then that's what you're opening yourself up to. And again, I played thousands of times, and maybe I'm just the luckiest son of a bitch in the world, but because I've never given my power over to anything, whether it's an inanimate object or whether it's another person, I've never done that. And so I always feel very in control of when I'm using it. And I tell everyone else to do the same thing. Whenever we even play for fun, when we played on the Hornet, I told everyone, like, hey, we're asking questions. We're in charge. We don't like what's happening. We shut it down. We say, goodbye. Thank you so much.
Right.
You know, and that falls into the whole...
And that works. It does work.
It completely works. As long as you believe. Belief is 9/10 of your reality. So if you bring your baggage, you bring your beliefs, all of this stuff comes to the table when you play the Ouija board or try to make contact. You know, some people feel really bad because they were brought up religious and they think they're doing something wrong. When you do these things, if you sit at a Ouija board or any type of spirit communication and you are afraid or you feel like ashamed that you're doing something, you're likely going to have a bad experience, because you're letting in a bunch of negative crap. Like anything else in your life, you know, like when you're in a bad mood, you pass it on to someone else. It's very contagious. And
yeah, I saw a couple people did mention that it was something that was passed along, that it was not a good thing to do. So it's mentally in their head that it's not something that they should do. You know, and then I know I saw Peggy in there, who was a paranormal investigator, said that she's not sure of what would come through. And then I'm thinking to myself, Peggy, I go, well, when we're investigating at the Hinsdale house, how do you know what's coming through on the ghost box? Or how do you know what's going through on... I mean, you got to really... I mean, you know, sorry I'm doing your job here, Robert, but you've got me a believer. You know, it's... you know, you don't know. Who knows what's coming through, really, at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Take one from Chuck Banks there.
I would trust no one. Like... When someone you don't know is giving you advice or telling you to do something, I mean, we all have a lot of responsibility in this. So whether it's a spirit box or Frank's box or a K2 meter, and it tells you to do something, why on earth would you do it? It's not you're talking to, it's like talking to someone on the subway. You might get a really nice person next to you and have a great train ride, having a wonderful conversation, or you could get someone who's got a lot of problems, who's a little scary. And what do you do when that happens in your like physical life, right? You're just like, okay, well, thank you so much. I'm gonna, go move over here, and you just stop the conversation. And people believe that, again, because of the Ouija board has some type of special power, that it opens the doorway, that you've now opened a portal that you can't close. When the whole thing is that portal is really inside of you. The question isn't, can Ouija boards talk to the dead? The real question is, can you talk to the dead? And if you can, then it seems likely a Ouija board would work. It's pretty simple. There's nothing to learn. If you were dead, you would know how to make this work because you probably saw one when you were alive. They've been around a long time.
True.
So that's part of it, is that because we believe this portal's been opened, and there's all these rules, like always say goodbye, never play in a graveyard, never play alone. All of these things have been wonderful additions to our pop culture, especially in movies and TV shows, because they allow us to see how a story plays out. 1973 Exorcist, right? They don't blatantly come out and blame the Ouija board, but we do know a very small clip, just a couple of minutes. We know she played the Ouija board alone. Later on, she becomes possessed by a demonic entity. Well, that's all you need. Like, people were not thinking demons with Ouija boards. That was not the common thought until after that movie, and then we see a swing, that had already been building, because movies had already been using them to be darker and darker. And so if you keep in your mind that the portal is inside of you, you are opening something else up, and that is just as much up to you to close and keep, when you want to talk to something and when you don't, as anything else. The Ouija board only has power that you give it. If you treat it special, if you think it's different than every other tool, if that's how you act, then you are creating something. I do believe our brains have incredible power, and because our beliefs, we don't know for a fact kind of whether there's a God or not. Everyone has their beliefs, but we've seen amazing miracles that when people pray, sometimes their terminal illnesses go away.
Like
it happens.
Like a collective consciousness, everybody focusing on one, no matter what religion you are. Somehow, somewhere, everybody believing in one collective consciousness allows for a miracle to happen, something crazy to happen. And how does that work?
I think it's the same with this. It's the same with a Ouija board. That, again, if you truly believe that it's this thing's fault, you've got to get this thing out of your house, then that's where the power lies. That's when the kind of everything goes sideways and stuff goes off the rail. We stop taking responsibility for it. What's really neat is, how many times have you heard when someone goes, "Oh, I have this super scary Ouija board story. I'd never touch another one." They tell you the story, and it's like, it's not that scary. Like, something banged, something made a noise, the lights went out, all those things, kind of all the experiences you're actually trying to get when you're playing with the paranormal. But what's unique to the Ouija board is it's what happens after. So the actual session isn't that bad. Maybe it tells you ask a kind of a silly question, like, when am I going to die? And then, that really sticks with you. Like, it gives you an answer, and you're like, oh, I don't know if I wanted to know that. But then it's what happens after. So suddenly, because you've opened this door, you're kind of hypersensitive to it. So suddenly the noises in your house that have always been there, you start to hear. And the shadows, while you're walking in the dark to shut off your lights as you go to bed, you start to notice those too. And suddenly all of these dots, we start to connect that might not have been connected before. So we create a narrative, which gets a little more scary because, again, once you believe, I'm very open to the fact that many ghosts and hauntings are our own creations. Who knows, who's to say that when you're talking to your grandma, it's not really your grandma, it's your memory of your grandmother that you've created because you believe and want her to be there so bad. I just don't know how much of all of these things play into it. That's why I would never do anything that the Ouija board told me, because I'm not really sure what I'm talking to. Is it my subconscious?
It's interesting because that's kind of what I've been thinking about a lot too at the house since Greg and Dana Newkirk came to the house, and they kind of threw some theories out. I mean, it seems like the the they asked to speak to the house, and it seems like a lot of the times the house or the area around gives you what you want. You know, so if you're there and you're focusing on something, like for instance when Chris and I were there and we did an event and we were focusing on a puckwudgie, all of a sudden we get an EVP of a puckwudgie. You know, I mean, is it there? I mean, we're catching pictures of something there. I mean, but it's like that's the focus, and
that it's like that energy, because I mean the area around Hinsdale, Robert. I don't know if you've been out there or not, but it's in the hills there, the Enchanted Mountains, and you just driving up, you can feel the power of this place. And I think you can augment. Everybody has will, which is your own spiritual energy, and your intent, what you do with it. And yeah, I could see where it could augment, so you could almost put things together for yourself by just through your intent, because you have the extra energy to pull in. You can pull in.
Yeah, I don't think we all want there to be one answer, right? Like we all want it to be so simple and black and white that, you know, when you die, you can part the veil and communicate. I don't know if it's that simple. I mean, if it was that simple, we'd know whether that's what we were doing for sure or not, and we don't. You know, and I don't think it's the same every time. I have sat down and played the Ouija board many times with people. It's clearly someone's subconscious. Like we planted seeds. I've done this experiment with Jeff Belanger many times. We plant stories throughout the day, and then we'll use the Ouija board, and we will get the things we planted back. So I know that we've stuck things in their head. But then other times we've gotten things that we can't explain. Not enough for me to say that was definitely a spirit, but something changed. Something was slightly different about it. And I think because humans are part of the equation, you're involving a whole set of like your brain. Things, you know, we only use a very small percentage of our brain. I don't know what it can do, you know, and what it creates. And again, because belief, humans are so unique in our world, where we can fill a gap with faith. We can decide to believe something that we can't see, touch, smell, taste. You know, like we'll decide, okay, this is my answer. This is where I'm going to put it. But we don't really know. And that's what I think keeps everyone, including me, looking. It all started for me real simply. I just wanted to know, where did this thing, you know, in 1992 come from? I wanted to know while I was in college, who made this? What were they thinking? Who were the people around it? And that just led me on to, you know, a 20-something year journey of trying to uncover and collaborating, and then, you know, getting so much steam behind us, coming from all the doors being slammed in front of our face, being able to start a nonprofit, the Talking Board Historical Society. Like, we're very, very lucky. And again, to be able to have the paranormal community that shunned it for so long actually help support these different things. We do all kinds of different things. We put in gravestones before, we put in plaques, we work with mayors of different cities and municipalities. We've made things historic landmarks. It's really cool, because what people forget is that the Ouija board is, again, such a part of paranormal history. Like, as much as I love it, because it's something I've been spending a lot of time on for way too many years, but it's paranormal history. And I think what was neat for me to see at this last event was so many people gave money and donated, simply because I think instead of having it just be a regular charity or a nonprofit, like all the great work that animal rescue leagues do or whatever, this was actually something that mattered to them. Like, it's their history. So no matter how you feel about the Ouija board, I wonder if the paranormal world would be as big as it was if something like the Ouija board wasn't put into every living room in America as early as 1890.
Robert, why do you think it happened? Why did you become, I don't want to say the word obsessed, but why?
Oh, totally.
Okay, how do you think they happened here? Well, you're 1992, you're a college student. Where were you majoring in?
I changed my major so many times. When I started at UNH, University of New Hampshire, I think it was pre-med originally, and psychology, which it still comes into play today. I'm fascinated by human behavior. But what happened for me were a couple of things. I was born and raised Orthodox Jew, and so anyone who's looking at my picture right now, and if you could see me live, you would know this does not look Orthodox Jew. Like, shaved head, earrings, tattoos, whatever. But at the time, I was. And my parents got divorced when I was 2, and we moved in with my grandparents and my mom. And grandparents are awesome because they're like parents without having to like ever treat you badly. They just like get you out of stuff. So my grandmother was really into horror and science fiction. And whenever my mom said, "Don't let him watch that," my grandmother would take me to see it. So as soon as my mom left, we watched Creature Double Feature. We watched every horror movie. She was super cool. And in 1985, 1986, she snuck me into a movie called Witchboard. So my first interaction with and thoughtfully about a talking board, I was 13 years old. And I kid you not, she snuck me in. She talked to the guy at the movie thing, so I would go around back and get into the movie and meet her there. So that'll tell you the influence my grandmother had on me. So she snuck me in, and I was amazed that Kevin Tenney was able to make an object the main character of the movie, that he actually gave the Ouija board a personality. And that's what let the movie work, like all these characters around them. And then, fast forward to I'm 20 years old, 1992, and or 18 or whatever, and I'm at college, and I have 3 roommates. I'm in a quad, and these 3 guys decide they want to rush for fraternity. And I know that if I do this, it's a bad decision. I'll never graduate college. So I was better off not doing it. But I helped them. And in their rushing for fraternity, they had to do a treasure hunt. And on the treasure hunt was find an old Ouija board. And as a New Englander, you antique, flea market, yard sale every weekend. So I knew I had seen them a million times. So I just picked up a bunch, went home, did some, flea marketing, antiquing, and when they were done, they gave them back to me, and there were 10 different boards. And I thought, isn't there only one Ouija board? How can there be 10 different boards? So I went to, your audience will probably laugh, but I actually went to the library. At the time, it was a physical building that you had to go into. It was probably the scariest building on campus. And every encyclopedia that I'd open, whether it was Funkin' Wagnalls or Britannica, it all said the Ouija board came from someplace else.
Wow.
And I thought, how can that be? How can everyone know what the Ouija board is? When I go into an antique store and say, "Do you have any Ouija boards?" I get a very instant reaction. Either, "Oh my gosh, I haven't seen one of those in forever. I used to play them when I was younger," or "I would never have one in here," and get out. So how could I be dealing with something that everyone knows what it is, everyone knows what to do, you don't have to read the instructions, put it in front of a 5-year-old, they'll immediately put their hands on the planchette and ask a question. But how do we not know where it came from? And that was the hook for me. It was, who are the people behind it, what happened, and today, in September 22nd, we are going to celebrate the woman who helped name it. So the very night that the board got its name, we're going to celebrate the woman who was part of that, and then went to prove it at the patent office.
Nice. Sounds like a worthy celebration to be involved with.
It does.
We've been really lucky, like I said, through this research, and it's not just me. The Talking Board Historical Society is about a lot of other people. I happen to be probably the most maybe prolific because I've just been the face for so long. But if your listeners feel like kind of learning more about us, they can go to the letters tbhs.org. So just the first letters of Talking Board Historical Society.org. You can learn about all of them. We have artists, we have people who make boards. We have skeptics, we have people who believe. We're just a bunch of really unique people who want to make sure that this history that's been lost over and over again doesn't get lost. So in 2015, we did OuijaCon, where we celebrated that 125th anniversary of the naming of the board, and the mayor of Baltimore made it Ouija Board Day in Baltimore and helped us put in a plaque in the building where the Ouija board got its name. So we do all kinds of weird stuff.
Then he also declared war on the streets.
Well,
During
OuijaCon was a
OuijaCon.
Riot. Yeah,
It definitely was a riot.
It was a
Let's
riot.
look at
I
saw Summer's documentary. I was like, damn, they were all like barricaded in that OuijaCon.
It was pretty interesting. The funny thing about the end of OuijaCon was the next day, after WouijaCon happened, the Monday was when the riots really broke out. Like there was skirmishes, there was stuff going on, but it was pretty under control until the funeral for Freddie. And once that happened, that's really when things went nuts. But what was ironic about the whole thing was the next day I stayed, and I figured, well, I'll clean up, I'll go slow, I don't have to rush. Well, that changed really quickly as the police kind of rushed our hotel and made actually the hotel where WouijaCon was became their base of operations. So all the police with riot gear came in. You have to get out. You have 30 minutes before we close the streets. But what was really kind of strange about the whole thing that was going on were there were people who believed that those riots that were, for your listeners, for people who don't remember, this was about a young man who died in police custody. He was black, and he was arrested, and he was roughed up inside of the van, and he died due to his injuries. And the fact that certain policemen weren't brought up on charges and all this other stuff that was going on caused Baltimore to devolve really quickly. And I was in constant contact with the mayor's office. They were actually really, really good to us and kept us all apprised and trying to get out. But I had to get out really quickly, and to see a city that has worked really hard to get out from where it's at and really economically depressed, to see it, those sections that have been raised up, to be kind of destroyed really quickly, was really sad. And I was supposed to drop off the plaque to the building where it was going to go into. Unfortunately, it had been ransacked because the bottom floor is a 7-Eleven. And so I wasn't able to deliver it then. I had to wait a few months, actually go back, and then we had it installed. So, so there was a person in a ministry who believed completely that the riots were due to WouijaCon. That because the city embraced this history, that's what caused the riots. They had nothing to do with each other. But
Give me a break.
It sounds real reasonable.
Yeah, it made a great YouTube video for someone.
Very logical.
So, but again, it comes back to belief. And when people decide to believe something, I don't try to change people's beliefs. I like having, like what we're doing now, we're having a conversation, and we're kind of talking about what we think, like maybe why this might be happening, or what our experiences are. And since none of us know for sure, it's kind of an open-ended conversation. There's no real, yes, this is it, and no, this isn't it, you're wrong. The paranormal just isn't about that. So when people get in there, I get really uncomfortable, because to me, the beauty of the paranormal and going to all these events and doing stuff with the Talking Board Historical Society is really educating other people, and then being educated myself. Like, listening to other people's stories and them telling me their experiences, that helps change and open my mind to things I might not have been so open to.
Absolutely. It's all about learning. Now, we only got a little bit of time left here, but I do want to mention some of the other projects that you're working on. If anybody wants to get any more information on, I have linked the page, Talking Board Historical Society website, to the page there for everybody. You can click on that to get more information on that. But you have a couple other projects that you're involved with. I don't know which one you want to talk about first. You want to talk about jumping in bed with Chip Coffee, or do you want to talk about bored to death? The project that you're working on about the world's most terrifying board game.
Yeah, I'm really lucky to have worked with many interesting and fun and solid, loyal, good people over the years. And three of them, I guess, would be Chip Coffee and I are old friends, and I love him to death. And I would jump in bed with him anytime, which I did.
This is hilarious for anybody that doesn't know. This is a new show that's going to be out on VidiSpace. It's going to be on the Haunted Space, and it's basically Chip Coffee in his bedroom. And he brings celebrities, para-celebrities, different celebrities from all different walks of nature into his bedroom. They put on pajamas, they jump under the covers, and they talk shop in his bed. And I know it got such a chuckle at the Michigan Paracon when that popped up, and looks hilarious. And I didn't know that you were one of the guys in his bed until I saw until after the fact. So I'm like, damn, I gotta talk to him about this, see what it was all about.
It was hilarious, and for me it was just timing, like it always is for me. I was actually out in LA, and so the other two people who are good friends of mine and very solid good people are Nick Groff and Elizabeth Saint. And because the Ouija board is so important to me, I've been very choosy about who I do these projects with. So I'm excited and very happy, and have it's so cool for me to have it in their hands and to work with them on Vidi, because their hearts are really in a great place, and I love their work ethic. I mean, you guys know, you've both worked with them, and they get stuff done in the way you would want. But what happened with Chip, totally I'll sidestep it. I was going out there to film for our docuseries, Bored to Death, and we were doing Hollywood. So we were interviewing people who made very important movies, and actors and actresses who've played roles that have helped define why you think what you think of the Ouija board. So that was what we were going out there for. Chip was also filming with them in his Paranormal Pajama Party show. And someone canceled. So I tell everyone, all my opportunities, the best ones I've ever done, I am not the number one choice. I am the world's favorite number two. So I have, because I have a good reputation, I guess, when things fall through, I tend to get the call. Those have always been my greatest opportunities, whether it's interviews or projects or whatever. And so I was already in LA. I was going to catch up with Chip and everyone for dinner, but it turned out someone canceled. Something happened to them. I think it was a health issue. And so because I was there, because Chip and I know each other very well and have worked together on many projects, it seemed like a natural fit. So I was more than happy to hop in bed with Chip once again, only this time there's a film to prove it, whereas before there had only been rumors.
That's funny. That's coming out really soon. I don't know when the D-Day is for that show, guys, but it's going to be included with your subscription to Vidi. You know, it's one of the many stations that are out. They're adding new content, new stuff. I'm helping. I'm doing a conference call tomorrow with Elizabeth, with a wrestling organization for the wrestling space, which I'm excited.
Awesome.
It's one of my things that I love doing. And then on Thursday, I'm taking my family to go see NXT. So I mean, that's something that I've always liked since I was a kid, and I'm excited to be able to help bring some additional stuff, additional hopefully filmings and live events on that particular channel that they're going to be adding on, and it's just exciting. It's exciting, all the different things that they're bringing on, and this is a cool show, and then you have your docuseries too. I mean, that's pretty neat too.
Yeah,
It's fun to be part of this.
It's super fun to be part of it, and a couple of my other friends are on it. The Occult Collector, we have Calvin Von Crush. He's a character who you got to meet, Daniel, so that was kind of neat for me. I didn't know he was going to see you, actually, or I would have.
It was a very, very impromptu.
Yeah.
That was a Tim Shaw thing. Tim Shaw was helping him film some stuff, and they're like, maybe we can make it out to the Hinsdale House, and it was only maybe at the Hinsdale House once a month. If that, and that was the particular day I was there. Yeah, you were there too.
It was the night we did the filming there.
Yeah, you were, and so you got to meet him too. Sutton got to meet him too.
Yeah, Calvin and Tim just came blowing in about 11:30.
Calvin, he's a bull in a china shop. One of my best friends. I love him to death, but he's made for the camera. So his show was perfect. I was able to introduce Nick and Elizabeth to him, and then of course one of my all-time best friends and family is House of Shrek. Mm-hmm. So Rick Shrek is one of my best friends. Both Calvin and Rick are both sit on the board of the Talking Board Historical Society. So we basically infiltrated everything. We're everywhere apparently.
It's nice, and it's nice to know that was kind of like your, kind of how it happened for you, because like the Ghost Crier guys, I kind of had a little hand in helping out get on there, and I know that kind of stemmed for Coyote to get on there. So it's kind of like it's all about real or fake, the guys from Paranormal Warehouse, because all of our shows kind of all intertwined, and we all kind of just work together, and it's just like a family. It's like building a family there.
Yeah, it really is. It's one of the coolest things when Nick and I are friends a long time ago, and so when he was telling me about this idea, and then I met Elizabeth, who I might have. Her and I aren't sure if we met before we actually started like working together. But when we started talking about it, it's all who you put. If you're going to do real stuff, if you're going to really get into stuff and really open people's minds and show people things they wouldn't normally see, then the stuff has to be really interesting with really colorful characters. And I was taught a long time ago, if you want to live an interesting life, surround yourself with interesting people, which I have really, really tried to do. And I'm sure that's way beyond my control now. But I look at Vidi and I just think they've done such an amazing job finding good, solid people, and then having them put them in touch with other people. And so, like you said, it's kind of like a web. Like, it's really, really grown from the days when I remember Nick and Elizabeth just trying to line up, like, what are the first shows going to be? Like, who will actually do this? And so to see it today take off and do this and even be part of it and just help, whether it's a friend or working on a project, I'm super proud of it. It's really cool.
Yeah, and then just to know how much that they put it, those two put into it. Like, I remember, like, the beginning days of those two showing up, and I'll say this, because it's like, who in their right mind would ever think that Nick Groff would come up to film them with Elizabeth, do a live show, and actually those two would be the two that would actually show up to film. I mean, that's how much heart and soul they put into this thing, and
yep.
and that they filmed 4 of that. They go from point A to point B. Oh, we gotta leave, then we gotta drive to Washington to go film Chad, then we gotta go here, and everything was live right at the beginning, and it's crazy. And it was just a skeleton crew, and they were the skeleton crew doing everything. And I was like, wow,
yeah.
this tells me a lot about their, the type of people you're dealing with. And not that I thought any less of them from the beginning, but that was because that's the type of people I always thought they were. But just to see them in action, really set them above the bar for me.
Yeah, they're really good. I can't say enough good things about them. I trust Nick. The paranormal community can be wonderful, and I got to see that at Michigan Paracon, where they all pitched in to help this cause that we're working on. But I've also seen them be really, sometimes it can get catty, and people pick sides as if we're not all on the same side, we're not all on the same team. And I think what I really like about Vidi is that's what they've built. They built like Team Vidi, and it doesn't matter what space you're on, what channel you're on, or what show you're on. It's all, like you said, it's all intertwined. We're all working together. Like, one person does well and they bring new viewers, and then people go in. It's like going into a mall, right? Like, you go in for one thing, you know what you were going in for, but then once you're in there, you look around and say, oh my gosh, like, I didn't know this store existed. I didn't know this show existed. I didn't even know this channel existed. So I think what they've built and how they've gone about it, like you said, when Nick asked me, we have played around with doing a Ouija docuseries for decades. It's never been the right time, or I haven't liked who we're dealing with, or there's always been something. But when Nick said, okay, so we're going to be in charge, we're going to do this, this is your project, we're going to do it the right way. It wasn't even I didn't even hesitate. I always say no. Like, when I'm in meetings with, whether it's Universal or Blumhouse or whatever, my first reaction is to always say no, and then see where it lands. But with Nick and Elizabeth, it was just a clear absolutely. Like, completely, like, let's do it.
Yeah,
let's go right now. And again, seeing them, I know how hard workers they are. I've seen Nick work really hard and have things kind of go south, and just work really hard, and then to see where he's at today, it's just, anyone who's thinking about working with him, or if they've approached you on a show, I can tell you it will be a good experience. You will laugh a lot. They're really good people, and you'll have a lot of fun. Because so far, everyone I've talked to who's done these shows, one thing is very in common, which is everyone is having a good time, which is rare in TV.
Yeah, it's true. We're all having a good time. Party.
It's exactly.
Yes.
You got. That's why we have the Humpty Hump.
That's right.
There's some work involved, but yes, no, it's a lot of fun. And Robert, I'm kind of like you. I'm into personalities. I'm not so much into, I can do this for you, I can do that for you. I've heard that crap before. Mm-hmm. I've known Elizabeth for a few years now, and I love the kid like she's a niece or something like that. I'm, obviously older than she is. So as we started talking, she goes, I'll get you the contract. I said, get whenever you want to. I said, but it's you, so I'm not worried about it. Yep. I still have the contract, even though I've had 2 episodes there. I still have a contract yet, but no, I know it's all cool. I'm not worried about it.
It's there.
Yeah,
it's there.
I know it's there. I'm not worried about it. No,
it's what's interesting is when I sat down with Nick and Elizabeth came to surprise me. Actually, they came out and they were going to be doing an event I think it was Dark Matters last year.
Oh, in Denver, yeah.
And they just literally decided, this is the kind of guy Nick is, a good friend. So I have a Ouija museum in my basement. It's kind of all my best, coolest, neatest things I keep out in shelves lit. And Nick decided, you know what? I want to do the video announcement from your basement.
I remember that.
And he did it simply because it would give me like greater, people would see me more. Like it would give me, a bigger audience. And that's the kind of guy he is. He's constantly doing things for other people, and Elizabeth's the same way. Like she had. I'm saying it like it was just Nick, and she's the one who had to set up all the equipment and everything. So she made that happen. But that's what Nick wanted to do. It's just his way of saying thank you for being a good friend and a solid person and loyal, and that's the way he is with everything. So I've worked with a lot of good people, and I've worked with some people that were not so wonderful to work with, and Nick, it just falls on the other side. Elizabeth and Nick are two really good people, and that's why I like listening to them talk to other people on their shows, because they're not telling other people how the shows have to go. They're telling people, hey, we know television, we know what looks good on television, but you have to give us the material, so you have to be interesting. You show us your world and we'll make it look good. Like, we'll worry about that, you worry about giving us the content. And that's not, I've worked on so many different television shows and movies, and that's not how it works in the real world. And yet video has become the real world. So I'm interested to see how what they're doing changes other stuff, because there's lots of other production companies trying to do a quarter of what they've done. So it'll be interesting for me to see how it affects it, because giving people their own shows to show what's important to them and their passions, that's not how it goes. Usually productions company decide what's going to be on the show, how it's going to work, what your part is, give you the lines. As you guys know, there's no lines being given here. It's just go.
Absolutely. All right, well, I mean, that's our hour, man. That went quick.
It did, man.
You're a good guest. We'll have to have you back again sometime.
You're a great guest for host, because you get a question, you talk for about 10-15 minutes. We just it's out our heads, that's cool, good to answer me. Yeah, no, you're great, Rob. I learned a lot, and it's wonderful to sit in talking to you.
Oh, thank you guys so much for having me. And for anyone who's out there, if you're in Denver, September 22nd, we're going to unveil this gravestone and kind of do a neat event, and you can be part of paranormal history and see something that's going to be very odd.
Nice.
I can promise you.
There you go. You guys, tbhs.org, www.tbhs.org. If you want to check it out, there's a link on the page. Just go check it out and get involved. If it's something that you're interested in, you can become a member. You can do whatever you want to do. Go to the events. It's really cool looking thing. So, and then Robert's got, again, two shows coming up on Vidi, Paranormal Pajama Party with Chip Coffee coming up, and then we've got his docu-series coming up in the near future, which looks to be really cool, Bored to Death. So stay tuned for that. If you haven't signed up for Vidi yet, it's cheap. It's like Netflix. You're gonna get a ton of cool content. We're releasing. We're on Amazon Fire right now, guys. We're gonna be releasing on Roku very soon, and I know Elizabeth's coding Amazon Prime right now. So all this stuff's gonna be available on all the different platforms. Apple TV's on its way. It's gonna be just as good as any Netflix but it's gonna be all independent and all really cool things that people basically have their own way of showing their own personal things. So it's really cool for the independents. It really is. So go ahead and check it out, vidi.space, guys, and sign up today. You don't want to miss anything. You can watch all the reruns of all the shows that have been on so far, and lots of new content coming out every week. So sign up, and we will talk to you guys. We'll be back next week. I know Dee and I are planning a show next week, so we will be back at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time on all these different platforms, and that's it. Have a good one, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Good night, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robert.